I shot only JPEGs for 1 week, and in this video I'm gonna share what I learned during that week. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto. I'm a photographer and a Lumix ambassador from Helsinki, Finland. And I really shot only JPEGs for 1 week. I didn't shoot any RAW, not even for backup. And it's not that this was my first time shooting JPEG, not at all. When the digital cameras came and when I got my first digital DSLR in 1999, JPEG was the norm because there was no proper RAW workflow available. But since the first version of Lightroom, I've been a RAW shooter because I just think it's so much better than JPEG. But now I decided to try JPEG again and see if I can make it work for me and if I can somehow reduce my post-processing times. And the cameras I used to shoot only JPEG were the Lumix G90 with the 12 to 35mm f2.8 zoom lens, and I also used the Lumix S1R with the 24 to 105 f4 kit lens. And here are 4 things that I learned when I was shooting only JPEG. I found it quite fun to examine the scene and try to get it perfect before or at the time when I pressed the shutter. And I also found that I spent more time kind of evaluating the scene compared to if I was shooting RAW. And it's not that I'm sloppy with my RAW pictures, I'm very careful and I know what I want, but because with JPEG I wanted to get it right and I was not prepared to do any post-processing, so I found that I spent more time with each exposure or each frame because I was examining the scene and the light and the shadow and the colors and everything. And I can certainly see the appeal of it for those who shoot only JPEG. You do your photography one scene at a time, and when you're done with one scene, you're done 100%, and then you're ready to move on to your next scene or subject. And that's it. Very simple, effective, and somehow uncomplicated. JPEG only makes sense if I plan to do no post-processing, zero post-processing, except for cropping. I don't consider cropping as post-processing because sometimes you just can't make the scene align with the aspect ratio of your sensor and you have to crop afterwards to make it perfect. But everything else, color balance, brightness, contrast, color saturation, and all that is post-processing, and if I plan to do any of that, I might as well shoot RAW because RAW simply gives me much better starting point. And JPEG simply offers me no benefit as soon as I start post-processing my images. And I'm not talking about any heavy-handed image manipulation, I'm talking about fine-tuning and tweaking the tonality and the colors to my liking. But now I'd like to show you some JPEGs that I shot on the S1R and the Lumix G90 cameras. And these pictures are straight out of camera, no post-processing, no cropping, no post-processing whatsoever, only downsides to 4K, to fit to 4K video. Enjoy the pictures, and after that I'll talk more about what I learned shooting these pictures. And also don't forget to check out my channel membership, it's right there, and also my merchandise, some t-shirts and hoodies for you to wear with some interesting slogans. There's a link down below if you're interested. And now back to what I learned when I was shooting JPEGs. I found that the image quality is great. I had nothing to complain about the image quality either with the S1R or the G90 cameras. But the real downside is that I have to decide everything before I press the shutter. And that's both good and bad. The upside is that once I'm done with one scene or subject, I'm done and I'm ready to move on to the next picture, and I never have to worry about the previous picture anymore. But the downside is that there are so many things to consider: the contrast, the exposure, the color balance, the color saturation, and all those that I wouldn't have to worry about if I shot RAW. I also realized that I shot more JPEGs compared to if I was shooting RAW. I bracketed the contrast and color saturation with some scenes, and I took maybe 2, 3 or even 4 different variations to make sure I get my perfect result. And to be able to quickly bracket the photo style or the contrast, I assigned a function button on the G9 to give me quick access to highlight and shadow control. And on the S1R, I assigned one function button to give me quick access to photo styles. And I also made a couple of custom photo styles for both cameras that give me a little bit a more contrasty and punchier look that I generally like. And the electronic viewfinder was a really big help here, because I could see in the viewfinder right away how the scene responds to my chosen photo style or picture settings in the camera. And I also found out that JPEG works the best if the picture has clear color, different color shapes and areas, or different shadow and light areas that divide the picture into shapes, like in this particular picture here. But if the picture depends on very delicate highlight or shadow tonality, I found it almost impossible to get the perfect results in camera, even with the best possible electronic viewfinder. Those kind of pictures that have clear color shapes or areas, or clear highlight shadow shapes and areas, they work well even if the exposure is half a stop here or there, or the color balance or color saturation is a little bit off, so to speak. But if the picture depends on fine tonality in highlights or shadows, and you over or underexpose such a shot by even half a stop, that can make or break the shot. And for those kinds of pictures, I think RAW is so much better starting point or option. I like post-processing. I like to sit down after the shoot. I like to sit down and make my selections and fine-tune my images in Lightroom. And I'm not talking about, like I said before, I'm not talking about any heavy-handed image manipulation. I'm talking about fine-tuning and tweaking the color balance, contrast and tonality to my liking. And I also think that if I manage to capture a really nice picture, I think it's worth it to spend a few more moments with the picture in Lightroom and fine-tune it to perfection. If I'm not willing to spend any time in post with my pictures, it makes me think if the picture was even worth taking in the first place. And how can I expect anyone else to be willing to look at my picture if even I don't care to do that in Lightroom? And I can see the appeal of JPEG. You get straight out of camera perfect results, and there's no post-processing to deal with. And if you are a news photographer, for example, and you have to deliver your pictures right away, then JPEG is perfect, of course. But when I shoot for myself, I'm never in that much of hurry. So in that 1 week shooting only JPEG, I learned that shooting only JPEG can be huge fun, and you can certainly get some great results with JPEG. But I also learned that for my photography, JPEG doesn't really offer any benefits compared to RAW, because I like to post-process my pictures and I'm never in that much of a hurry that I didn't have time to do my post-processing. If you really absolutely hate post-processing and you think you have no time to do it, then JPEG can be a really good solution. And I don't think JPEG shooting is somehow worse or a lower grade photography compared to RAW shooting. It's just a little bit different approach. And I think once you learn your camera settings and you learn which settings to use in which situation, you can certainly get some amazing results straight out of camera too. No doubt about that. Let me know in the comments down below whether you are a JPEG or RAW shooter, or what are your thoughts on this matter. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.